So this next one in Design League is from theboldb, who is someone I definitely don't know, and I think one of our newer entrants into forums or contests and things like that. This one looks really fun. So again, like the last, it's got a bit of a coastal setting, but more kind of pines and wooded areas, and we've created some trees. Nice. So looks like we're going to have lots of variety. We've got cliff hedges, done a ton of planting. So we're going to leap into this. It does look like it's nicely contained within that rectangle in the same sorts of ways. Yeah, let's give it a play. Okay, so this one, I think, immediately, last one I talked about fairways starting a bit too far away, or the first two. This one, fairways could start a little bit further away and they actually start a bit too soon. Again, also, driver feels like an, I guess with the elevation, that's going to catch a lot of 3-woods, and that's almost, I think if you're laying up, your punishment is should be more on the second shot. I've got 50 yards longer in, so I think I'd lose this bunker completely. It's the fairway's a little bit pinched anyway by this planting, which I think, for me, that's coming a little close to the playable area. I'd probably move it away or make it a bit less dense around the edges. That sort of density, probably if it's about here, is fine, and then thinning out as it comes closer. I do like the planting, but it's very different here to it is up here, which is quite a bit more bare. I think maybe one or the other would have been good, or kind of like, I think probably just this side needs a bit more. Simple green, well protected with a couple of bunkers. Sightline is good, and what I do like as well is the fact that it looks like this slope, if I'm not challenging the left hand side, there's a possibility that I'm ending up in that bunker. And of course the very slow comes in. Well, we'll lay up short of the bunker, it's fine. Bunker sculpting, I think you'll get better as you go. It's a little bit harsh in places and a little bit shallow in others, so if you compare your central fairway bunker to this one I think we can drop the front down a little bit, raise the back up a touch more. It doesn't need to be much. You've also got a little bit of grass you've missed, which doesn't really bother me too much, but it's kind of a sign of just could have used a little more checking. With this bunker, I think I'd probably just lower the land in front of it. As you can see, it's you want to define a high side and a low side, and also I generally make sure the bunker texture is not the top of the hill. So if the top of the hill is like here and the bunker texture is below that, you'll have a better effect, as you've done over here. This one's good. Like what you did on this bunker, copy and repeat that. So I mean, we can get close. Well, we could. I probably can't, but I know we got the swing I wanted. That's going to go through. I like as ever, I like the green side. I think it's good. I love that you've allowed some run-up shots. Is nice. There's a mound at the back, and interesting. Like there's enough interest on this green without going too wild. Could probably dial up the slopes a little bit more for a par 5, but I like what you've done. And we're going to make a birdie with 4 pretty terrible shots. Excellent. Fun start. I like that you've put in 2 par 5s and 2 par 3s. I think that's a really good way of ensuring variety. I wouldn't necessarily extrapolate that to 6 and 6, 6 for over a course of 18 holes, but definitely the more of those different types of holes you use, the better. Yeah, again, I think you're starting your fairway a little bit too early. There's nobody who's laying up with an 8-iron to here. I think if you lopped off to about here, that would work really nicely. And as you can see from the sideline, it would. I think if you imagine how it would look cutting across here and then up, I think it's a better look than just a little appendage of fairway. Love this planting here. That sort of density is very different again to the stuff we've seen on the first. I think part of this should be consistency would help. I think this is a really natural look. I like that a lot. So sticking with that would be good. Bunkers, I like that we can see all of them off the tee. I think sculpting wise this one could use angling toward the player a little bit more. It's kind of pointing this way. Haven't really commented on texture colours yet. And I'll do that in a second. Oh, we got away with it. This is a good little green site again as well. I like that it's banked into the hill a bit. Trying to work out what has gone on with the textures here. Okay, texture colours first of all. I think you've gone for a really nice muted fairway and heavy rough and light rough, and then the bunkers and greens are just super bright. I would probably consider mute because there's no way that these two come from the same palette. I'd probably mute both of them just because they are really they're quite sharp. You've done something interesting with your bunker here. Oh no, you haven't. Sorry, I thought that was fairway coming around this side and I couldn't tell. That's all good. Yeah, this bunker sculpting, as you can see, we could use flattening or dropping down this a little bit. Yeah, I think bunkers generally are going to be your go-to. That would be my thing I would work on. I wanted a partial. Because planting and like framing and hole ideas, those have all got the right ideas. They will get there. Bunker sculpting I think would be the one thing that I'd really look at. I mean, you've shown me through the first two holes, you can definitely do a sightline. So I don't think it should be too much work for you. Ooh, this is interesting. Okay. There's a lot I like about this. I like that you've given me a layup option, but it's not simple. The undulations are going to make me think. The planting, again, it's a little close. You can see it's intruding on your surfaces. I think general comment is your planting is probably a bit too close to your playable surfaces. Here is about as good as... So I commented on the first. I think you got about right. And the same here, that sort of spacing is good. I would like just a touch more width probably up here if I went for it, but I love that it looks like you've allowed me to land it here and run it on. That's brilliant. Green shape I'm not enamored by. I think if you've got a little cut in here, there's got to be a reason for it, like a mound or a bunker or something. And actually I think you'll get a lot more playability, particularly as you've taken this area of the green away, so like that might as well just be heavy rough, and then it goes into a bunker. Those two things don't really match that well. What I'd probably do, I think you'll gain a bit more if you just make the green shape look like this a bit. I don't know, something like that, which means that you can bounce it on, but it's going to still require a really good shot. But I'm struggling to see where you might put 4 pins without it getting really tricky. I think you've got one here, one here, one here, and if you've got one back here, then that worries me a little bit because I don't think that's not a fair usable part. But that is just guesswork. That's a really fun tee shot though. Oh, I don't think I've quite got the wind for it. And actually, what I like about that is on another day I can see myself laying up. Yeah, I don't think this green complex is not making as much sense as the others have done. The site is good, but all of the slopes should be going this way. Yet around the pin they're sort of going back this way, and then there's this fall off that, as I said, I don't think really makes sense. What I would have loved to see would just be this whole green, simple shape, sloping hard from right to left. And that way you want to be on it and you definitely don't want to be leaving it up here, so that then if we take that back and look at the fairway, well, now you're encouraging people to lay up on this side of the fairway rather than this side, so that they're not hitting down the slope, and I think you can work everything off that. It's a really enjoyable hole though. I'll get there. No, not quite. I've just noticed the green speeds. I'll talk about that on the next green when we get there. So now to our back-to-back par 3s. That's a stunner. It's a little too into the sun. generally, if as you can see, there's quite a glare coming off here. It looks really good. It would look even better if the sun was from here. I'd just factor that in when you're putting your tea down or your green down. When you're rooting, just direct into the sun. Actually pretty blinding. I think this one could really use some fairway surrounding it. Just for this pin in particular, I've got to land a hybrid there. But whereas if you give me fairway in front of it, then I've got a bit of a choice of running it on. This is now, I mean, this is perfect shot or bust. I can tell you now I do not have a perfect shot. So also then if we're running off, then we're directly into heavy rough, which isn't much fun. But I love the setting, love the planting. This green shape, again a bit wild, but I think you've allowed much more space for different pins than you had in your previous. Sizing and scaling, I guess, are your two main ones to take away from here. Now, green speeds. With TGC tours, we can use all of the default speeds when we're scheduling something for tour usage. So those are 163, 144, and 187. So therefore, try to, and by those greens, I mean if you look at how, I'll talk about it on this screen. Yeah, same thing. You've given me a bit of a run on here, but it's actually not, and it's kind of running off. This little bit doesn't make sense with where the land is wanting to go as well. I do like this. Where have we just come from? So we've played that par 3. Hold up. Routing wise, we've got something that's confusing me. Okay, so we play that par 3 coming this way, then we come across, then we play that. Got it. That's all fine. Right, let's hit the tiers on this one. Makes sense. The bunker makes sense. Honestly, I'd have probably just brought the water in and put the green close to that. I think that would be better. But I do like that with your back-to-back par 3s, you've gone one long and one short. That always makes sense, and I think if you're going to do it, it pretty much has to be like that. There we go. Right, so green speeds. If you'll notice when you're playing, and you'll see 144 feet up here, that's to do with how fast your green is, because that's if I pulled it back all the way and hit as hard as I could, theoretically 144 is how fast the green would go. We can always use that by setting greens to moderate. We can use 163s by setting them to fast when we're scheduling, and we can set them to very fast, 187. So really choose something between those. It's not a knock, but it's probably just something you're unaware of, because you're basically depriving schedulers of one more opportunity. This one's an interesting hole. I guess with wind it probably plays, and different drivers it probably plays differently. And with this driver I'm probably just, I love the sight line up to this pin and seeing that all the way up there. That's a really good look. I think visually this is really strong. And the fairway looks like it's, I mean it still starts a little bit early, but it fits more here. Oh, yeah, we were talking about scaling. This green's suddenly giant. And I think this is, a lot of the things I'm mentioning are things that newer designers typically do, and I think you'll be able to clean up really easily. With your greens, I would just check your, in terms of sizes, if it's like 35 yards long by 25 wide, that's a pretty good aim, whereas this one is, what, 146 through to 199. Yeah, we're looking at 55, so it's a little bit on the long side. And then width, it's hard to tell. Width is probably not miles off. Width, I'd guess at 30. Well, definitely 30 at the back, probably 25 here. Probably 30. I think this one's just a bit too big, whereas some of the previous ones have been a little small. Alternatively, if you're splining them, when you're placing your spline, it will tell you the distance. I'd aim for around 100 yards, and that will give you a pretty good green size. Like I say, that's a really common thing, and certainly on some of my first courses, that's one of the things people picked up for me. There's a lot of good. This is a really interesting, like your green sites I think are really good. I think the planting is great. Oh, this is, I like this little spine you've got in the middle. That's making this part really interesting and nicely dividing it. Oh, please get over. Ugh. Oh, well, we're not ending up under par, that's for sure. Shame. So yeah, this one's the Bold B, and I like I say, I don't know any of your other courses, but that's a really strong start, and there's a lot of good here. So hopefully the playthrough helps, gives you a few things to take away and look to work on. But yeah, a lot of fun there. And while I'm signing up, again, for anyone watching, I'll post the link to where Design League is happening ahead of the second set of challenges. You can join up at any time. You don't need to be in for all of them, so up to you. But hopefully see a few of you there, and hopefully this has been helpful. Cheers.